He was my first love. The boy whose voice gave me butterflies and whose very name could make my thighs clench with a hunger I didn't understand back then. Jayden Santiago, the kind of boy who only existed in fantasies. He was everything I wasn't. Handsome in a sinful, dangerous way, with the kind of body sculpted by Greek gods and eyes that could silence a room. His family? Old money rich. The kind of wealth that came with legacy and European power, and he was the heir. Destined for greatness. And me? Willow Evans. Bookish. Quiet. The 18-year-old nerd who lived in libraries and whose clothes were always a little too loose. I had ink-stained fingers and notebooks full of dreams I never dared say aloud. Nobody looked at me twice, except my best friend, the only person who knew how badly I ached for a boy who never even saw me. At least that's what I thought. What I didn't know was that Jayden had been watching me for years. Quietly. Protectively. Wordlessly. A whisper in the locker room to shut up a bully. A subtle move to sit closer in chemistry class. But he never said a word. Never acted on what he felt. What? Because Jayden Santiago wasn't normal, not in the ways that mattered. He didn't fall in love. He didn't do soft. And the things he wanted to do to me? They weren't innocent. They weren't gentle. He craved dominance, control, bondage, submission. Things he didn't believe a girl like me could handle, or would ever want. So he stayed silent, and I stayed blind, until 5 years later. New York City buzzed beneath me like a living thing as I stepped out of the cab in front of a mirrored skyscraper. Castellano Group. That name alone made my breath hitch. I shouldn't be here. I should have deleted the HR email the second it hit my inbox. But I didn't. Because 5 years later, Jayden Santiago was still carved into my thoughts. And now he was the CEO. I almost said no to the interview. Almost. But this job, this opportunity, was everything I had worked for. I had earned a scholarship abroad, graduated top of my class in data analytics, built a portfolio strong enough to land interviews at Fortune 500 companies. And yet, standing in the lobby of his empire, I felt like that same 18-year-old girl again. Small, ordinary, forgettable. I clutched my resume tighter, trying to calm my racing pulse. This was just business. He probably didn't even remember me. It had been years. People like him didn't hold on to high school memories, especially not about girls like me. But when the elevator doors opened on the top floor, I stepped into a world of glass and steel, sleek, cold, and utterly commanding. And then I saw him. Jayden Santiago. He was taller now, sharper, more powerful than I remembered, in an expensive suit that fit his body like it was sewn onto him. His presence filled the room before he even spoke. He turned slowly. His eyes met mine. And for a second, everything in the room disappeared. "Miss Evans," he said smoothly, his baritone voice a blade slicing through me. "A pleasure, long overdue." When I first saw her name, Willow Evans, on the list of resumes forwarded by HR, everything around me stopped. Willow. The girl who had haunted more of my cold, sleepless nights than I cared to admit. The sweet, quiet girl who made me ache in ways I didn't understand as a teenager, and in ways I knew all too well as a man. She didn't belong in my world back then, and she certainly didn't belong in it now. But that never stopped the need. Back in high school, Willow Evans was the picture of innocence. Head always buried in a book, shy glances tucked behind thick glasses, and a softness that made every fucked up part of me burn. I used to watch her from afar, wondering what it would feel like to hear her beg my name, to see her tied and trembling, trusting me with all that purity. But I didn't touch her. Because girls like Willow deserved vanilla love, slow touches, whispered promises under starlight. And I wasn't made for that. I was into dominance, control, obedience. I was into submission so raw, it left marks you couldn't always see. Willow was light. I was everything that devoured it. So I stayed away. I let her go. Because the idea of her looking at me with fear, of seeing disgust instead of trust, was more than I could stand. But now, she was here. Grown. And her name was sitting right in front of me. My chest tightened as I read through her credentials. She'd studied abroad, graduated top of her class, built an impressive analytical portfolio. She was brilliant, sure. But none of that stopped the storm rising in me as I stared at her name. Willow. I closed the file. Picked up my phone. "Inform HR I'll be joining the panel for the interviews," I said to my assistant, already clearing my schedule. "And push the board meeting. I don't care what it's about. She was walking into my building, into my world, and this time, I wasn't sure I'd be able to walk away. I thought it was just a greeting, an awkward, too long stare between two people who hadn't seen each other in 5 years. I expected him to say hello, offer a handshake, and disappear to whatever towering, billionaire-level responsibility needed his attention. But no, Jayden Santiago walked straight to the head of the table and sat down. His subordinates followed without a word, taking their seats like this was just another executive task on his daily calendar. Like this wasn't wildly inappropriate. My breath hitched. I mean, yes, I was excited to see him. How could I not be? After all this time, after everything I had felt for him, seeing him again stirred something in me that no one else ever had. But why was he here? Shouldn't a man like him be dealing with million-dollar deals, mergers, anything other than a mid-level data analyst interview? Calm down, Willow, I told myself. Just pretend he's not here. But my body didn't get the memo. Because no man, not in 23 years, had made me feel the way his gaze made me feel in that moment. Not the guys who flirted in college, not the ones my friends tried to set me up with, no one. And God help me, I was still a virgin. Not because I was saving myself for marriage or had some grand romantic philosophy. No, I just never met anyone who made me want to give it up. Until now. Until Jayden Santiago walked into a room and looked at me like I was something he could devour. Miss Evans, one of the interviewers said, snapping me back to earth. Tell us a bit more about yourself. I blinked, swallowing hard. I mean, as I mentioned in my resume, I began, my voice trembling slightly. I graduated from one of the most prestigious institutions overseas, top of my class in data analytics. I've worked on multiple data optimization projects that significantly increase productivity and forecasting accuracy. For a company like Castellano Group, I paused, feeling his gaze like a brand on my skin. Having me on the team would contribute meaningfully to growth and innovation. God, he was still looking at me. His eyes weren't just watching, they were doing things to me. Things I had only dreamed of. Things I had shamefully prayed for in the quiet of my apartment, alone under my sheets. Jayden's expression didn't give much away, but there was a fire behind his restraint. A pull. And I had this sudden, terrifying thought. What if I wasn't imagining it? I shouldn't have come. I told myself that when I saw her name on the resume. I told myself again when I adjusted my tie this morning and canceled half my day just to be here. And I'm telling myself now, sitting across from her, as my entire body burns with restraint. Willow Evans. She's not the awkward girl from high school anymore. She's still soft, yes, still carrying that quiet brilliance like a secret. But now there's a poise to her. A confidence that coils around my gut like a fuse lit at both ends. And God, the way she looked at me when I walked in. That flicker of recognition. The catch in her breath. She still feels it. Still feels me. I keep my face neutral. Impassive. But underneath? Chaos. Her voice is like warm silk sliding over skin. Her eyes flit nervously, but every time they land on me, they linger just a second too long. Just long enough to make me imagine things I shouldn't in a room like this. Things I've only let myself dream of in the darkest, loneliest hours of the night. She's talking, something about data optimization, company growth, and I'm trying to listen. I should be listening. But all I can think about is how she'd look kneeling at my feet, those same lips forming the words, "Yes, sir." I shift in my chair discreetly. Every goddamn instinct I have is telling me to end this interview. To walk her out, press her against the glass walls of my office, and finally claim what I've denied myself for years. But I can't. Not yet. Because she's still innocent. She doesn't know what I am, what I want, what I need. And if I move too fast, if I don't do this right, I'll lose her before I ever really have her. She finishes speaking, and for a second, her eyes flick up to meet mine. She swallows. Her thighs shift slightly in the chair. Her breath trembles. She feels it too. This tension. This pull. And it's killing me. "Thank you, Miss Evans," I say, my voice low and composed, barely. "We'll be in touch very soon." But in my mind, I'm already planning the next move. Because this time, I won't let her walk away. I finally exhaled the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding the entire time. The moment I stepped out of the boardroom, my knees wobbled slightly, my nerves still buzzing from the intensity of that interview. It had been short, but God, was it tense, like trying to stay composed in the presence of a controlled storm. But it was over. I had survived. I was halfway through the polished marble lobby, making my way toward the exit when my phone rang. I paused, glancing at the caller ID, and instantly my lips curved into a smile. Tonia. My best friend since childhood. The one person who could always ground me no matter what storm I was in. Are you done with your interview? She blurted the moment I picked up. I laughed. Hi to you too, Tonia. And yes, I'm done. I'm actually just stepping out of the building now. How was it? Did you get to see him? Her voice dropped into that teasing lilt she used whenever Jayden's name came up. The walking daydream you've been obsessed with since we were, 16? I rolled my eyes, still smiling. Tonia. What did he say? Did he remember you? Did he faint from how gorgeous you looked? Spill. I laughed again, the tension in my chest easing with every word from her. Okay, calm down. One question at a time, please. I raised a hand and tried to hail a cab while still holding the phone to my ear. So, she pressed, clearly vibrating with curiosity. How about this? I said, stepping to the curb. Let's meet at your place later. I'll tell you everything, from the moment I walked in to the second I walked out. No details spared. You better, she warned playfully. And bring wine. I want drama, Willow. Drama and details. Deal? I said just as a cab pulled up. I opened the door, settling into the seat. But even as I gave the driver Tonia's address, my mind was still upstairs, in that room with him. And I had a strange feeling that this wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. Tonia's apartment always smelled like vanilla and coconut, like the kind of place where your shoulders instinctively drop the moment you walk in. The lights were dimmed just enough to feel like evening had given the room a warm hug, and a soft indie playlist hummed from a Bluetooth speaker somewhere in the kitchen. By the time I kicked off my shoes and sank into her plush navy couch, Tonia was already handing me a glass of red wine. She dropped beside me like a cat, graceful and entirely too excited. Okay, she said, curling her legs beneath her. Spill. Start from the second you walked into the building. No skipping. I want tension. I want drama. I want steamy CO moments. I took a sip of wine, then a deep breath. It was him. Her eyes widened. Jayden Santiago was in the room? Not just in the room. He conducted the interview. Sat directly across from me. Looked at me like... I trailed off, feeling heat rise up my neck at the memory. Like he was seeing me for the first time. Or maybe not. Like he remembered. Tonia gaped, gripping her wine glass with both hands. He remembered you? I don't know. He didn't say anything that confirmed it, but his eyes did. His whole presence did. It was intense. I've never felt so. I hesitated, searching for the right word. Seen. Tonia leaned forward. Girl, the way you've talked about this man all these years, I swear I feel like I'm emotionally invested too. What did he say? I laughed softly, rubbing the rim of my glass. He called me Miss Evans. Said it was a pleasure to meet me, long overdue. Tonia blinked. Oh, my God. That's not a coincidence. That's not even subtle. And then the way he looked at me during the whole thing, I shook my head, flustered again. Like he was barely holding something back. It was so professional and yet, not. Every time his eyes lingered on me, I felt it in my bones. Tonia. She exhaled a dreamy sigh. You know, if this were a movie, that man would be secretly in love with you. Hidden emotions. Repressed longing. Underground wine cellars and silk ropes kind of story. I choked on my wine, laughing. What? I'm just saying, she said with a smirk. He's rich, mysterious, and always seemed intense. And you're the one girl he never chased in high school. That says something. Yeah, it says I was invisible. Tonia gave me a look. No. It says you were the only one he couldn't figure out. And trust me, guys like that hate mysteries, unless they're obsessed with solving them. I paused, letting her words sink in. Maybe she was right. Maybe all these years of secret feelings weren't as one-sided as I thought. I looked down into my wine, heart fluttering. He said they'd be in touch soon. Tonia arched a brow. You think you'll take the job? If they offer it, I think I have to. Not just for the opportunity, but for me. I want to know. I need to know if what I felt today was real. She grinned and clinked her glass to mine. Then buckle up, Willow. Something tells me this is just the beginning. After a long evening at Tonia's, I finally dragged myself home. The moment my front door clicked shut behind me, I didn't bother with lights, dinner, or even changing out of my interview outfit. I was too tired. I kicked off my heels, dropped my bag somewhere by the couch, and made a straight path to my bed. I collapsed face first onto the mattress, dress still clinging to me, makeup faintly smudged from the day. You'd think exhaustion would knock me out instantly, but no. My body was still humming with leftover adrenaline, every nerve alive with memory. Jayden Santiago. That voice. That gaze. The barely there smirk like he knew every secret I didn't want revealed. I lay there in the dark, eyes wide open, replaying every second of the interview on an endless loop. The tension in that room had been so thick it felt like silk and static, smooth but electric. And the way he'd looked at me, God, it had been 5 years and he still had the power to make me feel like a live wire just from a glance. Eventually, sometime before dawn, I must have drifted off. BZZZ. BZZZ. My alarm and my phone went off almost at the same time. Half asleep and groggy, I reached out blindly to the small table beside my bed, a stand-in for the makeup vanity I never cared to use. I fumbled for the phone and brought it to my ear without opening my eyes. Hello? I croaked. Good morning, Miss Evans. The voice on the other end was polished, crisp, a woman's voice, professional and clear. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Santiago, regarding the interview you attended at Castellano Group yesterday. My eyes popped open immediately. You've been shortlisted for a second round, she continued. This one will be a one-on-one session, directly with Mr. Santiago. He's requested to personally oversee it. I sat up slowly, pulse beginning to race. He did. Yes, ma'am. If you're available, we'd like to schedule you in. What time would be convenient for you? I blinked, mind scrambling. This couldn't be just another interview. Not after the way he looked at me. Not after the heat in that boardroom. Tomorrow morning? I offered, clearing my throat. Would 9 a.m. be all right? Noted. I'll block off Mr. Santiago's calendar accordingly. I could hear the woman tapping away on a keyboard, efficient as ever. She hadn't slipped once, keeping her tone neutral, like this wasn't the most surreal call of my life. Thank you, I added. You're welcome. We'll see you at 9, Miss Evans. Have a good day. Click. I sat there for a moment, phone still pressed to my ear long after the call ended. My heart was pounding. This wasn't over. Not even close. Jayden wanted me back. Alone. And this time, I had no idea what he might do. The moment the call ended, there was only one person I could think to reach out to. My hands shook as I hit her contact. Tonia. I practically screamed the moment she picked up. Whoa, Willow? What's going on? Are you okay? I took a deep breath, but it came out more like a gasp. Jayden's office just called. I've been shortlisted for a second interview and this time, it's him. Jayden. He's going to do the interview himself. What do I do? What should I wear? I can't breathe. Okay, just calm down, Tonia said with her usual effortless cool. You're not going now, right? You've got time. I have till tomorrow morning, I replied, still pacing around my room in a semi-panic. Perfect. I'm coming over, she said like it was the most natural solution in the world. We'll go through your closet together. I'll even bring some of my clothes just in case you want options. There's nothing to stress over. But. No buts. You've got this, Willow. You always have. Trust me, you're going to walk into that office tomorrow and wow Jayden so hard, he'll have no choice but to hire you on the spot. Her words, smooth and confident, finally cut through the fog in my head. I let out a shaky laugh, smiling despite myself. What would I do without you? I said, heart still racing but softer now. Honestly, she teased, you'd probably be a hot, miserable mess by now. I snorted. Fair. True to her word, Tonia arrived an hour later with 2 shopping bags of outfits, accessories and shoes. We turned my tiny apartment into a mini runway, trying on everything from smart blouses to subtly sexy dresses. After a lot of giggles, debates, and twirls in the mirror, we finally picked the perfect outfit, classy, sharp, with just a hint of allure. Now all that was left to do was wait. Tomorrow I'd face Jayden Santiago. Alone. Again. And this time, something told me everything was about to change. I hadn't been able to think straight since the first interview. Willow's presence lingered in my mind like perfume on skin. Faint, haunting, impossible to ignore. Nights were longer now. Torturously so. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Those wide, intelligent eyes, that soft voice trembling under pressure, the way her lips parted nervously when she spoke. I dreamed of her, of the things I wanted to do to her, the things I'd held back from doing for far too long. No, I meant every word when I said she wasn't going to slip through my fingers this time. I'd asked my assistant to schedule second-round interviews for all the qualified candidates. A formality, really. It was only Willow I wanted to see. I made sure her name was on the list, and more importantly, that she would be the last one scheduled for the day. When I passed that instruction along, my assistant looked confused. I could see the question in her eyes. Since when did I care who we hired so long as they were competent? But she said nothing. Nobody questioned me. At least not to my face. That morning, I dressed with more care than usual, not that I needed the help. But I wanted to make an impression. For her. The girl who'd haunted me for 5 long years. The girl who didn't even realize how much power she held over me just by existing. I arrived early, brushed off the board's morning memos, and entered my office with deliberate calm. My assistant greeted me with her usual punctual cheer. "Good morning, Mr. Santiago." I paused as I reached for the door. "When the candidates arrive," I said slowly, adjusting my cufflinks, "please make sure Miss Evans is the last to come in." She blinked but nodded. "Of course, sir." That way, I thought to myself as the heavy door shut behind me, I could keep her there as long as I damn well pleased. The alarm buzzed again. 3rd time. I groaned, dragging myself from the tangled sheets. I'd barely slept. How could I? My thoughts had been a whirlwind of memories, of what his eyes looked like when they landed on me yesterday. Of how his voice, deep and deliberate, made my body react in ways I wasn't prepared to admit. Not even to myself. I sat up, my legs dangling off the side of the bed, and stared blankly at the floor. Jayden Santiago wants to see me. Me, Willow Evans. Alone. Even the thought made my stomach twist into nervous knots, and something lower coil with heat. Tonia's words echoed from the night before. "You're gonna wow him so hard he won't know what hit him." I smiled faintly. God, I hope she was right. I walked to the bathroom and turned on the shower. As the hot water hit my skin, I tried to calm myself. Tried to reason with myself. This was just an interview. A job. A chance. Nothing more. But that lie didn't hold. Not when I remembered the way he said Ms. Evans, with the kind of reverence that didn't belong in a boardroom. Not when the man who once haunted my teenage daydreams now stood before me, more powerful, more devastatingly handsome than ever, and somehow, still looking at me like I was the only thing in the room worth seeing. I stepped out of the shower and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My hands trembled slightly as I applied a little concealer and curled my lashes. Not too much, just enough. I didn't want to overdo it. I wanted to look smart, composed, but maybe a little pretty too. Tonia had helped me pick the outfit the night before. A soft ivory blouse tucked into a high-waisted pencil skirt that hugged my hips just right, professional but flattering. Underneath, though, I wore the lace bra I usually kept hidden away, the one that made me feel daring. It was silly. You wouldn't see it. Still, it was there. A secret I carried into the elevator. A whispered dare against my chest. As the cab approached the Castellano Group, my heart pounded like I was walking into something far more dangerous than a second-round interview. And maybe I was. Because this wasn't just about a job. This was about him. The boy I once loved. The man I now couldn't stop imagining. The waiting room was colder than I expected. Too pristine, too silent, like even the chairs knew how intimidating this building was. I had arrived early. 3rd to be exact. "Good morning," I greeted with a smile that didn't quite reach my nervous stomach. 2 people nodded back politely. I took a seat, smoothing my skirt, trying not to overthink every second. 10 of us. Final round candidates. I should have gone in early, just like my position on the list. But one by one the names were called, skipping right past me. I blinked, stunned, as the assistant ignored me and called the next name. Then the next. Then another. By the time the 9th person returned from the interview, I was the only one left. "Miss Evans?" the assistant finally said, her voice too casual. I stood but hesitated. I wasn't going to pretend I hadn't noticed. I came in 3rd. Why was I sent in last? I asked, firm but not unkind. She only smiled. "Please go in. He's waiting." I stared at her for a heartbeat, then adjusted my glasses and pushed open the massive office door. The room was insane. Dark wood. Sculpted metal. A panoramic view of Manhattan behind a wall of glass. It was the kind of space that screamed wealth and restraint, just like Jayden. And there he was, pouring himself a drink beside a cabinet lined with decanters. Every movement he made was deliberate, composed. Like he belonged to this world and it belonged to him. "You planning on just standing there staring at the decor?" he said without turning. "Or will you come sit before I start thinking you've forgotten how to speak?" His voice, God, his voice. I forced my feet to move, snapping out of it. "Mr. Santiago, thank you for the opportunity to." "Willow," he cut in, finally turning toward me. His eyes met mine, calm but unreadable. "We know each other well enough to skip the formalities. Just call me Jayden. We were high school mates, remember?" I blinked. Mates? That word in his mouth felt heavy, personal, like something warm wrapped in iron. "Yes, I remember," I managed to say, sitting down across from his sleek black desk. My fingers fidgeted with the edge of my notebook, but I stopped myself. His gaze lingered a little too long. "You've changed," he said. "In the best way." My heart tripped. Was this still an interview? Or something far more dangerous? Jayden sank into the chair across from me, his drink untouched but his gaze searing. He didn't pick up a resume. No clipboard. No formal script. Just silence, and me slowly unraveling under the weight of his attention. "So," he said at last, fingers steepled beneath his chin, "tell me, Willow, why Castellano Group? Why now?" I cleared my throat, forcing my thoughts away from the way his lips curled when he said my name. "I believe I can offer analytical insight into your international expansion. I've worked on predictive modeling, global trend forecasting, and your file says that. I've read it." He cut in smoothly. "I'm not interested in your qualifications on paper." I froze. "What I want," he continued, voice lowering just a notch, "is to know you. What drives you? What keeps you up at night? What made a shy, quiet girl from Crestwood High chase the world and come back with fire in her eyes?" I looked at him, really looked, and saw it, the control he fought to keep. The heat behind the polish. The way his jaw tightened ever so slightly, like he wanted more than my words. "People underestimate me," I said carefully. "They see a bookworm, a good girl. But they don't know how badly I want to own something. Not just data but my place at the table." I came back to take up space. Jayden's eyes darkened with something unreadable. Approval? Hunger? Both? He leaned forward. "And what if that table was a little unconventional? What if the role required more than numbers, something more challenging? Would you still want it?" I wasn't sure exactly what he was asking. But he wasn't talking about a job anymore. It wasn't just about me joining his company. It was about whether I could belong in his world. "I don't scare easy," I said, heart hammering. "Even if the table is a little unorthodox." A ghost of a smile tugged at his mouth. He sat back, slow and satisfied, like a lion that had just confirmed its prey wasn't going to run. "Noted," he said, almost whispering. I didn't know whether I should be happy or scared as I stepped out of the building, and away from the man who was currently the reason behind this whirlwind of emotion inside me. The moment I reached the street, I remembered I needed to call Tonia. I dialed her number and she picked up on the second ring. "Oh God, Willow. What took you so long?" I was about to send out a search party. I rolled my eyes, smiling a little despite myself. "Calm down." "So, spill," she urged. "You've been radio silent since you walked into that lion's den." "Okay. I got the job," I said, my voice quiet, unsure. "He gave you the job?" she repeated, then paused. "That's a good thing, right? But why don't you sound happy? I mean, you've always wanted to be close to him. So, what's wrong?" I sighed, my throat tightening. I can't help but wonder if he gave me the job because I earned it, or for some other reason entirely. One that only he knows. And honestly, it scares me. Gosh, why does this man have so much power over me? Tonia, sensing the crack in my voice, immediately cut in. "Willow Evans, don't you dare, not for one damn second, think you didn't deserve that job. Or any job. You are one hell of a smart, capable woman, and no one, not even that dangerously hot man you've been in love with since forever, gets to make you feel otherwise. Period." Her words sank deep, steadying something inside me. "Thanks, Tonia," I whispered. "I love you so much." "I love you too. So what are you going to do?" I'm heading to my mom's place. It's been a while. I think I need the weekend to figure things out. I'll let you know what I decide by Sunday." "Good," she said firmly. "And Willow? Whatever you choose, make sure you own it." I smiled, ending the call. Then I hailed a taxi and leaned back as it pulled away, heading home but carrying a storm inside me. As soon as she stepped out of my office and the door clicked softly shut behind her, I let out a breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding. Relief? Maybe. But not the comforting kind. It was the kind laced with tension, desire, and frustration. I just sat there, staring at the space she'd occupied, her presence still thick in the air, her scent lingering like some kind of punishment. Willow Evans. God help me. I leaned back in my chair and loosened the collar of my shirt. It suddenly felt suffocating, but not from discomfort, from excitement. Out of all the candidates, Willow's resume was by far the most impressive. That's what made it easy for the panel to unanimously agree she was the best fit for the role. The second interview wasn't about qualifications. It was for me. For us. I needed to know if we could work together. If I could keep my hands to myself. If she could handle the weight of my attention. And now, I was more than satisfied. She was brilliant, composed. But underneath it all, I saw that flicker, curiosity, restraint, longing. I didn't imagine it. She's going to be working beside me now. In my space, breathing my air. Wearing those skirts that hug her hips like a second skin while pretending not to know the chaos she stirs in me. She has no idea what she's walking into. But one thing is certain, Willow is finally close. Close enough to touch. Close enough to want even more. All I have to do now is play this right. Let her feel safe. Let her come to me. And when she does, she'll be mine. Mine alone. The cab ride to my mom's house felt longer than usual. Maybe because my thoughts kept drifting back to him, Jayden. The way he kept looking at me in that office. The way his voice slid beneath my skin like warm honey laced with something darker. I should be happy. I mean, even if it was all in my imagination, he looked my way, and I got the job. But all I felt was a strange pull in two directions, logic and longing. I didn't have to ring the bell twice before the door opened, like she'd been waiting for me all day. "Willow, baby," she said, pulling me into a hug, holding me the way only a mother can. Like no matter how old you get or how complicated life becomes, you're still hers. "Hi, Mama," I mumbled into her shoulder, and for a moment, I allowed myself to breathe. Just breathe. She stepped back and studied me. "You look tired. Long day." "You have no idea," I said with a small laugh as we stepped inside. The scent of warm stew filled the air. The living room hadn't changed. Same faded curtains, same creaky couch, same family photos on the wall from when I was missing my front teeth. But it grounded me. Slowed the racing thoughts in my head. "Interview?" she asked, ladling food into bowls like we were back in high school. I nodded. "I got the job." She beamed. "Willow, that's wonderful." "Thank you, Mama," I said softly, picking up a napkin. "So," I asked, "how have you been?" She sighed. "Fine, just... I miss my child who doesn't visit much these days. And Willow, I've told you, there's no need to stay all by yourself. This place gets lonely now that your father's gone." She looked away, suddenly emotional. "I'm sorry, Mama," I said, guilt tightening my chest. "I'll try to visit more." That made her smile again, and I could tell it mattered more than she let on. Later that night, tucked into my old bed beneath a quilt I'd had since middle school, I stared at the ceiling. The house was quiet. Safe. Familiar. I knew I wasn't going to reject the job. By Monday, I'd be walking into a challenge, a world of expectations, tension, and temptation. I was scared a little. But I also knew I wouldn't run from what was coming. And as I turned on my side and closed my eyes, I felt it again. That flutter. That ache. And somehow, deep inside me, past the nerves, past the doubt, I wanted it. Even if it was bad for me. Monday came too quickly. The morning light bled softly through the curtains at my mom's house, and I stared at the ceiling for a while before moving. My thoughts weren't exactly professional, certainly not the kind you're supposed to have about your new boss. But then again, nothing about this job felt like it would follow the rules. After a quiet breakfast and a long hug goodbye, I stepped into a cab with my heart thudding against my ribs. Castellano Group towered ahead, sleek and glassy, like a promise I wasn't sure I could trust. As I walked through the lobby, I tried to center myself. Focus. This was the opportunity I'd worked so hard for. A seat at the table. My name on the door, someday. And yet, there was him. Jayden Santiago. I'd barely gotten off the elevator when I saw his assistant waiting for me, already sharp in a tailored blazer and heels that didn't flinch on marble floors. "Miss Evans," she said with a professional smile, "Mr. Santiago asked that you come directly to his office for a quick orientation before meeting the department." My stomach flipped. Of course he did. I nodded and followed her through a corridor of glass-walled offices and quiet power. Every step felt like it echoed louder than it should. When she opened his door, I tried not to brace myself. He stood by the window, back turned, looking out over the skyline like it belonged to him. "Sir," the assistant said, "Miss Evans is here." He turned slowly, his gaze sweeping over me with a heat that tightened every nerve in my body. Dressed in a dark suit that looked sinfully good on him, he didn't move right away, just took me in. "You're on time," he said, voice like velvet and steel. "I try to be," I replied, standing a little straighter. First impressions matter. That almost smile curled at the corner of his lips, and he nodded toward the seat across from his desk. "Let's talk, Willow. About your future here, and what I expect." There was something in the way he said expect, something that made my breath catch. I walked in, slow and measured, and the door clicked shut behind me. And just like that, Monday had begun. Jayden didn't sit. Instead, he leaned against the edge of his desk, arms crossed, watching me with a calm that felt calculated. "You're going to report directly to my strategy team," he said, "but your work will intersect with my office regularly." I nodded, trying to hold his gaze without sinking into it. "Understood. But I want clarity between us, Willow." His voice lowered slightly. "Clarity and discretion." "Discretion?" My breath hitched barely. He walked closer, not too close but just enough that the space felt charged. "You're talented." "Sure. I knew that when I saw your first proposal. But what I need from you can't be found on paper." "What do you need?" I asked, barely trusting my own voice. "I need someone I can trust, who won't flinch when things get intense. Someone who can read a room, and read me." His gaze didn't falter. "Can you do that?" he asked. I held his stare, heat coiling low in my stomach. "Yes." He finally stepped back, reaching for a folder and placing it on the desk in front of me. "Then here's your official onboarding packet. Meeting in conference room B starts in 10. Your new team is expecting you." I reached for the folder, but he didn't let go immediately. Our fingers touched. "I'll be watching," he murmured. I didn't look back as I left his office, but I could feel him behind me, still holding me there with nothing but his gaze. I stepped into the room with my shoulders squared and my heart thudding like I'd just run a mile. The team was already seated, faces turning, polite smiles offered. A sleek woman with a pixie cut waved me over. "You must be Willow. I'm Priya, project lead." "Hi," I said, taking the open seat beside her. "Nice to meet you." "Jayden speaks highly of you," she added, almost teasing. My cheeks burned. He gave me a very thorough orientation." Priya smirked. "He does that." The meeting began, numbers and timelines dancing across the screen. I tried, really tried, to stay grounded. But every time someone mentioned executive direction, or Jayden's oversight, my thoughts flickered back to his office. His voice. His heat. I was going to have to work twice as hard to prove I belonged here. But I could do it. Even if every room I walked into now carried his shadow. By midweek, my calendar was packed. Strategy briefs, cross-department huddles, onboarding modules. I should have felt overwhelmed. Instead, I felt alive. Like I was finally on the edge of something big. But even now, buried in work, I could feel him. Jayden. Every time his name appeared in an email. Every time his office door opened and footsteps passed by. Every time I spoke in meetings, I wondered, was he listening? He didn't hover. He didn't handhold. But when he did appear, like during Tuesday's quarterly review, his presence hit like a silent wave. He walked in late, nodding at the boardroom, eyes scanning the table until they landed on me. Just a flicker like a spark through glass. I swallowed hard, praying no one could hear the thunder of my pulse. I kept my voice steady as I presented the market projections, but I could feel it, the pull. His approval felt like a reward. His silence, a dare. Later that day, I caught my reflection in the mirrored elevator doors. You belong here, I told myself. Even if every glance from him burns through your skin. From my office, I could see her through the glass wall, head bent over spreadsheets, lips parted in concentration. She didn't know I watched, but I did. Not obsessively, strategically, or so I told myself. She didn't flinch when challenged in meetings. She asked smart questions. She pushed back. She didn't flirt. She didn't try to curry favor. That somehow made it worse, because every damn thing about her was earned. And still, I wanted her like something forbidden. Like a man who'd been too disciplined for too long finally tasting hunger. I couldn't touch her. Not yet. But I could set the field. I forwarded her first proposal to the C-suite without asking her. Praised her quietly to the board. Moved a budget line to accelerate her project's approval. And when I passed her in the hallway, shoulders squared, eyes locked forward, I said nothing. But our eyes met. And in that split second I knew she felt it too. I didn't expect to still be at Castellano Group at 9:47 p.m., barefoot in the boardroom with my heels tucked under the table. But here I was, running numbers on the expansion proposal Jayden had unexpectedly fast-tracked. We were supposed to present by Friday. It was Wednesday night, and nothing felt ready. A knock echoed on the glass wall. I looked up and of course it was him. Jayden didn't say a word as he walked in, sleeves rolled up, blazer gone. His tie hung loose around his neck. It felt intimate, like seeing a professor slip out of a lecture and into something too human. "You're still here?" he said, not surprised. I could say the same. His eyes flicked to the whiteboard covered in notes and back to me. "I had a feeling you'd stay late, that you'd want this perfect." I tried to smile, but I couldn't help it. There was something in his voice, something not about work. He circled the table, glancing at my open laptop. "You're thinking like a consultant," he murmured. "But this isn't just about predictions anymore. It's about risk, ownership, stake." He was close now. Too close. I turned slightly in my chair to face him. "Then tell me what you see." He didn't look at the spreadsheet. He looked at me. "I see someone who's always been capable, but finally dangerous." That word, dangerous, wrapped around me like silk and fire. I stood, needing space. He stepped back just slightly. A heartbeat passed. "Jayden, if we're going to work together." "I know," he said, voice rough. "That's why I'm leaving now." And just like that, he turned, walking out, leaving me in silence, breathless and burning. I leaned against the door once it shut behind me. It would have been so easy. Just a brush of my fingers across hers. Just one word said differently. One kiss. But she wasn't a fling. She was the woman I'd watched become a force. She was walking willingly into my world, and I refused to be the reason she doubted if she earned it. So I walked away. For now. But that didn't mean I was done. I just knew the difference between hunger and the kind of fire that could consume everything. It wasn't long after he left that I finally gathered my things and headed home. The cab ride back felt too quiet. I pressed my forehead to the cool window, watching city lights smear across the glass like brushstrokes on a fevered dream. My reflection stared back at me, flushed, wide-eyed, and unsettled. Not from anything that happened, but from everything that almost did. His voice still echoed in my ears. The way he looked at me, like I wasn't just a woman in a dress but something dangerous. Something his. I should be angry that he crossed a line, that I was objectified. But I wasn't. All I felt was heat curling low in my belly, wrapping around my thoughts like smoke. And the worst part? I wanted more. By the time I unlocked my apartment and kicked off my heels, my head was pounding. I peeled the dress off slowly, like shedding something intimate. Something intoxicating. I didn't even bother changing into pajamas. I lay down naked, letting the duvet press cool against my bare skin. Not like I wouldn't have preferred it to be Jayden's hands instead of cotton. Thank God it's the weekend, I thought, exhausted but too wired to sleep. Maybe I'd visit Tonya, or invite her over and try to do something fun. Distract myself. But the thought shattered the moment my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it, frowning. "Willow, I forgot to tell you." I froze. That voice. I knew it instantly. "Jayden?" I whispered. "Yes, it's me." His tone was smooth, low. "Dangerous. There's the annual Castellano Gala Ball coming up, and as a member of the team, you should be aware. Sorry for the short notice, it's this weekend. It would be a pleasure to see you there as a staff member of the company." I exhaled, my chest loosening a little. But he wasn't finished. "But you won't be going as an employee." My breath caught. "You'll be going as my date." The line went dead before I could even register the words. I stared at the screen, at the quiet room, at the shadow his voice had left behind. His date. Not colleague. Not staff. And just like that, sleep was no longer a possibility. The morning sun streamed through my window, too bright for how little I'd slept. Jayden's words looped in my mind like a record stuck on the same line. You'll be going as my date. Not a suggestion. Not even an ask. A declaration. I sat on the edge of my bed, legs curled under me, staring at my phone like it might ring again and offer clarification. And out. A second version of the truth that made this feel a little less charged. Nothing. I called Tonia. You're what? She shouted after I recapped everything. Say that again, slower. I said he invited me to the Castellano Gala. But not as an employee. As his date. And then he hung up. There was a beat of silence on the line. Then, oh honey, that man isn't playing checkers. He's playing chess. With your heart. And probably your panties too. Tonia. What? I'm not wrong. She exhaled. Listen, this isn't a normal invite. That gala is the event of the year for Castellano Group. All eyes are going to be on the CEO and whoever he walks in with. So if he's bringing you, that's not a casual choice. My pulse pounded. I know, I whispered. I know it's not. Tonia softened. So, what are you going to do? I rubbed my temples. Show up, I guess. Pretend I can handle it. Pretend I'm not walking into a ballroom wrapped in a dress that he will be watching me unzip with his eyes the entire night. Phew. She was quiet for a second. Do you have something to wear? I gave a weak laugh. Not unless we're going for cute girl who looks like she's borrowing her mom's evening wear. Okay, she said with a sigh. You need me? I'm coming over. We're finding you the kind of dress that makes men, including Jayden, forget how to speak. And just like that, the countdown to the gala began. One breath. One dress. One dangerously charged dance toward the inevitable. Tonia came through like a miracle, dress, makeup kit and all. She didn't just help me get ready, she transformed me. By the time she was done, I barely recognized the woman staring back from the mirror. My lips were fuller, my eyes sharper, my dress hugging me like it was made for this moment. Is that me? I whispered, still stunned. Tonia smirked behind me. Damn right it is. Before I could say anything else, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped. When I opened the door, a sharply dressed gentleman stood there, bowing slightly. Miss Evans, he said with a professional smile, Mr. Santiago has asked me to escort you to the gala. Oh, okay. Let me just grab my purse. No need, Tonia said quickly, handing me my clutch and gently pushing me toward the door. Don't overthink it. Just go. Breathe. And have the best night of your life. You can process the rest later. The man led me to a sleek black car parked at the curb. He opened the door with practiced elegance and I stepped in, trying to calm the nervous thrum in my chest. Thank you, I murmured as he shut the door. He circled around and slid into the driver's seat. Moments later, we were gliding through the city,